Hey folks, welcome back to the Edupedia world, and I am Abhinay Gupta. And today again, we are continuing with the producer company, right? So far we have dealt with the formation of the company, the conversion, right, and the procedures, all those stuff, right? The object of a producer company. So we have so far understood what a producer company is, right? But today we go ahead to the next level. Right. When I say next level, today we go ahead to understand the basic management of a producer company. Right. And since it's a company, the management begins with the board of directors. So today let us understand the limits and the actions, appointments and the stuff of board of directors of a producer company. Right. So to start with, we go ahead with section 581O, which deals with the number of directors in a producer company, right, which defines the limit to the directors in a producer company, the bandwidth, right, how many people are required to manage a producer company. So when we talk about the bandwidth, in any scenario, no producer company should have less than 5 directors, right? So in your company, other companies, you may have like 2 directors, 3 directors, whatever is the limit, depending upon whether it is a private company, a public company and stuff. So in a producer company, you have to have a minimum of 5 directors. You cannot operate with less than 5 directors in a producer company. And this limit can go up to again 15 directors. Right? So the range is between 5 to 15 directors in a producer company at any given point of time. You cannot have more than 15 directors and neither can you have below 5 directors, right? So this is okay. When we are incorporating a producer company, we get these many directors appointed. Appointment is something we'll see in the next section, in the next slide, right? Over here we are just talking about the number of directors. Now understand one more thing, right? When it is the first year, when, for example, a society converts into a producer company, right, where you haven't actually gone ahead to establish or incorporate a new producer company, all new, but you actually get into a conversion from a society to a producer company. So understand, even that society had certain number of directors with them, right? So whenever that society converts into a producer company, all the existing directors, when I say existing, means all the directors that were a part of that society as on the date of conversion, would continue to be the directors in the producer company. And that would be for the period of next 1 year. Right? And when it says all, means all. If there were 3, 10, 12, whatever. Right? So in that case, all those directors will definitely continue for the period of next 1 year. And remember, when you are writing answers in an examination, right, you'll have to be very careful with the words in law. You cannot write all the directors of a society will convert into the directors of a producer company. No. Why? Because all the directors means there have been some people who were directors of the society in the past but may have now vacated their office. So if you say all the directors will become the director in producer company, would include even those directors. So you will have to specify that all the directors as on the date of conversion, right? All those who have been there, even if a director resigns a day before the conversion, he will not be a part of the producer company, right? So all those directors who are a part of the producer company as on the date of conversion or transformation would continue to be in office of the producer company as the director for the period of 1 year from that transformation date. It is again not calendar year, not a financial year. It is exactly 1 year, that is 365 days from that transformation date. Clear with it? Right? So now we understand the bandwidth of directors. Now let us see how are these directors appointed. So section 581P would definitely take us to the next discussion, right, which is about the appointment of these directors. Right, you have incorporated a producer company, you need to appoint some directors. So let us see what is the difference, right? Basically, like in normal company, how do we appoint directors, and in producer company, how do we appoint directors, right? Just try to find out the difference, because that will make you realize and remember. That if you just try to mug up, okay, these are the things, you may tend to forget. But if you relate things, right, your brain works faster. Why does it help? Basically because when you relate, you also go into your subconscious mind to look for something that was stored over there. And when that connects, it always gets stored over there. So consciously you can, if you just think of memorizing and just plotting it down in the paper, specifically in CA final law and audit, you will face a lot of problems. Right? Because you are not supposed to write down the mug up answers. They're not asking you for quotes. They're asking you for they ask you to apply your brain. Right? So when we talk about the appointment of directors, so this section will basically also give you the provisions according to which the directors will be elected. Right? But prior to that, the subscribers of the memorandum, right, the people who have subscribed the memorandum, who have signed the memorandum and the article of association, they would themselves designate the board of directors. That yeah, we are signing it. Either you select somebody among yourself or somebody else, whatever, but you will have to say that yeah, these are the 5 people minimum who would be the directors of the company, until and unless, right, the directors are appointed or elected in accordance with the provisions of the given section. Right? So subscribers of the memorandum would designate 5 or more than 5 directors within 90 days. Right? But when I say within 90 days, does not mean that you have to designate within 90 days. Within 90 days, that election would start. Right? Because these directors would be elected or would be designated by the subscribers of memorandum in the initial period when the company starts. When you are signing the memorandum and article, you specify that these are the directors, and they would continue unless and until you elect the directors as per the provisions of the section. Now in 90 days, that election has to begin. Right? So for that period, these 5 directors or more than 5 would continue. Now again, remember one thing very specifically. When I say it's 90 days, it is not a blanket date given, that in every scenario it has to be 90 days. Right? So for example, if the producer company is registered, is incorporated for the first time, right, then obviously you don't have directors on day 1. So what do? Subscribers of memorandum and article, they designate some people as director. That has to be 5 plus, right? And then within 90 days, they get into the procedure for election of directors, right? But now consider a different situation where the producer company has actually been formed as a result of conversion of a society into the producer company. Then we have already seen, right, that society already had certain number of directors who would all be converted. All means all on the date of transformation, who were directors as on the date of transformation, would be converted into the directors of the producer company. Right? So these are not any people, anybody designated in the memorandum. Right? These are actually directors who have been managing the affairs even earlier. So in this situation, you do not have to hurry up. When I say hurry up, you do not have to get into a haste to get a management body to control, right, or to manage the entire producer company. Because since these directors who were the directors of society have been managing the society, and the same society is being converted, right? So basically even the operations remain the same. So these directors can still manage the company, right? So there is a bandwidth given that okay, that election of the directors in the case of a conversion, right, shall be conducted within 1 year. But there are 2 conditions over there. One, as I have discussed, that yeah, it has to be a conversion case. Secondly, when we say that all the directors would be converted, then those all should always be more than 5, because that is the minimum requirement of the producer company. If it is not more than 5, then you will have to conduct the election within 90 days again, because the criteria is not fulfilled. You need directors, right? Even if you need one more director, you will have to get into the election, and that has to be done in 90 days. But if you have 5 or more as on date of conversion, you can take a period of 1 year before getting into the election of directors. Are you clear with this concept? So if everything goes good, if you have directors in place, you can take 1 year, but if you do not have them in place, it has to be 90 days. That is the simple message that this law and this section wants to communicate. Right? If you put it down in simple plain text, that is it. Right? And these directors who are appointed, right, or who are elected, they would hold office for a period of at least 1 year and a maximum of 5 years. Right? And that will depend on one producer company to another producer company and will always be specified in the article. Right? So the tenure of any director to hold the office in a producer company would always depend on the article of association of that producer company. And what does the article say? Does it say 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 5 year? Right? Whatever is specified in the article would be the tenure of the directors in the producer company. Right? And these directors who are retiring as per their article, as per the completion of their tenure, will always be eligible for reappointment. Right? So if a director, if they want to keep a director for lifelong, for example 10 years, 15 years, they will have to reappoint that director at every expiry of his tenure. Right? But with every, that will be the rotation, right? If it's a rotation of 3 years, then the directors, they have to retire at the end of 3 years and then can be reappointed. And all these appointments of directors, right, remember, they will always be held in the AGM. Right? So the directors shall be elected or appointed by the members of the producer company in the annual general meeting of their members. Right? And also the reappointment will take place in the same annual general meeting. Okay? So that is the next line. The directors retiring by rotation shall be eligible for reappointment. Now, apart from these directors, right, the producer company can also co-opt to have more additional directors or expert directors, So these additional directors, expert directors may be required for any specific purpose, any specific object of the producer company, right? But there is again some checks and filters for your additional and expert directors. Now what are they? So the first check and filter is that the total limit of the additional director or the expert director shall not be more than 1/5 of the total number of directors in the company. Right? That is the first filter. Then their vote will not be counted when you are trying to decide or elect the chairman, right, the chairman of the producer company. But if you want to elect any one of the additional director or the expert director as the chairman, then that is allowed. So that means if you are electing a chairman, their vote will not be calculated. But if you want to make them the chairman, you can do that. That means they cannot influence anything. But you can do whatever. The directors who are there, they have the power to do whatever. They want to elect somebody among themselves, somebody from here, whomsoever they want, they can do that. Right? And the other thing is that their tenure is also not specified by the article necessarily. When I say necessarily means, if the article says the tenure of all the directors would be 3 years, then that is the limit. No director would serve the office for more than 3 years. May it be the normal directors or the additional director or the expert director. Right? But the board of directors may also go further to decide that the tenure of additional or expert director would be even lower. That may be 2 years, maybe 1.5 years, maybe 1 year. Right? So since the board of directors, they co-opt to elect more directors as additional and expert directors, so they will decide for what period of time, of what duration do they want those additional directors. Right? It is not that you have appointed an additional director and even that person will retire after 3 years. No. An additional director is appointed for any specific task, right? An expert director is appointed for any specific object. So let them do that. They are not supposed to be involved in the working. So that is why they are not supposed to vote. But they can be made the chairman. Their tenure will also be decided by the board of directors. So basically these directors, they do not have a lot of power in their hand. The power always remains with the main core director team. the board, right? And the board will govern the actions of the additional and the expert director. Clear with that? Now beyond this, in the next lecture we'll take up the vacation and the other segment of this sections, right? So far for this lecture we'll wind up the class over here, and I'll see you guys back in the next lecture to continue with the further topic of this section. So until then, this is Abhinay Gupta signing off. Thank you and bye-bye.